Alright, I wanted to do a quick video on how I sharpen a chisel. I know there's probably, you could go on YouTube and find hundreds of these, and I'm not saying any one of them is any better or worse than what I'm doing here. I'm just showing you how I would do it. Like I said, my methods are no better or worse than anybody else's. I was on a forum one time and we were talking about sharpening, and a guy told me my method was fancy. I'm not sure what he meant by fancy, because I use a duo sharp stone here, a 1000 grit and an 8000 grit water stone, and a strap. This is everything I use to sharpen most of my tools. Sometimes I use sandpaper. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if anybody's used this product yet. I kind of like it a lot, especially for curved tools. It's a flexible paper. It works great if you wrap it around a dowel, or you can wrap it around a block, anything you want to do. It's pretty tough stuff. It doesn't rip. I've probably used this a dozen times or so, and it still has grit on it. Anyway, this chisel has already been prepared. The back is already flat, so this isn't a full-fledged sharpening from new to usable. This is just a maintenance sharpening. And I put a micro bevel on this chisel, which I don't know why, because I don't use them very much anymore, but for some reason I put one on here, and I don't really remember why I did it. I use auto glaze cleaner on the stone. You don't need to use anything, but I use auto glaze cleaner. I'd seen Paul Sellers do this, and not really sure why, but I'm assuming because there's no water. I guess it's this alcohol. It's isopropyl alcohol basically, so I guess it won't rust like water would. But I sharpen freehand. I'm using the fine grit. I guess that's a 25 micron. I don't use the coarse grit. The other side of the stone is coarse. I wouldn't use that unless I was starting from scratch. But I sharpen with just finger pressure. I don't use a guide generally for chisels, unless this was really beat up and I was trying to get it back to usable. But I just sharpen, or I should say, move the chisel back and forth until I can feel a burr, an even burr across the back. Sometimes it takes a matter of just a minute or two. Sometimes it takes a little longer, depending. To be honest, I don't remember the last time I used this actual chisel here. But I'm already getting a little burr. A little bit uneven sharpening, to be honest here. Let's try that again. I know you could speed up these videos in the editing section, but I probably won't do that in this case, because this won't take very long. I know there's people out there that recommend only freehand sharpening. Some people recommend only using a guide. I don't really think it matters what you do. I generally don't like guides for two reasons. One is because I just don't feel like setting them up. I don't woodwork a whole lot. Not as much as I would like to, at least. And I don't really feel, there's woodworkers who love sharpening. I don't like it at all. I don't really feel like doing it, but it's necessary, obviously. Almost got this. Trying to get rid of that micro bevel. That's why it's taking a little bit longer than it normally would. But the other reason I don't like honing guides in general is because I use water stones, and for whatever reason, it's pretty straight across there. I don't know if you can see, it's hard, you can't see that in this. I'm using the iPhone camera this time. So, not that my other camera is any better, but this camera has a little bit lesser of a profile. It fits easier on the desk, or the bench, I should say. But I was saying that I don't like honing guides because, and this just could be me, but I believe that they leave a groove in your stones, your water stones, and, well, I know they do. I shouldn't say I believe they do. I know they do. I've seen it. And that groove is a pain in the neck to get out. At least on the traditional, the side clamp. I have this. This is the Veritas honing guide, the precision honing guide, which I like. I use this for the stewed. I mean, I sharpen my stew chisels too by hand, or without a guide, I should say, but this works pretty well on wider plane irons. This was really the only time I will use it. And it does add a micro bevel by just turning around the wheel. Let me keep going here. Alright. Almost out of full bevel. Or a full bar, I should say. Look, I'm not a professional broadcaster here. And I worked 11 hours today, so my mind isn't working all that well. There we go. Oh, let me do that a little bit more. I probably should have chosen another chisel. This one actually needs a little bit more work than I thought it did. And the lighting in my garage isn't all the best, to be honest. Which is ironic considering that I'm supposed to be an electrician. But you'll notice too that I'm sharpening on my bench, which I very rarely try to do because this stuff is a mess. And I don't like getting it on my bench, so I put some craft paper down to keep it clean. Sorry, I'm talking off camera. This is a 1000 grit water stone. For this, I'll put on gloves. For 11 years, I worked in a printing company, doing just about everything, running the presses, maintenance, electrical work, and I used to come home with hands that looked like I dipped them in motor oil and left them there all day long, which didn't make my wife very happy. So I try to keep them clean whenever possible now. So this was soaking in just water. And I don't usually, I have an Agoriston, but I don't really use it that much. Maybe in this case I will. Once again, I don't really think that following a specific angle is necessary. Some people do. I don't. I just don't really have the time to worry about it, to be honest. If I want to woodwork, I take the hobby seriously, but if I start worrying about the minutia of every little angle, where your workbench, what country your workbench originated from, where I'm buying my furniture, I just think it's utterly ridiculous where woodworking has gone in just a short time that I've been, taking it seriously, I should say. There's a lot of people who want to tell you how to think, where to shop, what tools to buy. I don't see the need for it. I'm not a philosopher. I don't think woodworking needs a philosophy, particularly if you are a hobbyist. Use whatever you want, doesn't matter. And it shouldn't. If you want to get involved in those discussions, then I stupidly did when I first started woodworking. I don't anymore. Or at least I try not to. Sometimes I get sucked in on because I can be stubborn like anybody else. I almost have basically do have a full bar on the back of that. But yeah, do your own thing. It seems that everybody either wants to be told what to do or to tell somebody what to do. And if that's the case, join the military, you'll like it. But this is a hobby, it's all it is. If it's your profession, great, God bless you. But the professionals know what at least I would think, know what I'm saying even more. All right, let's go to the 8000 grit. Once again, sorry about the diatribe there. But just thinking about that guy, whoever he was, saying my sharpening system was fancy, I still think it's what's wrong with every woodworking forum on the internet. I don't spend much time on this stone here, even though you can if you want. If you notice too, I didn't flatten the back after each pass of each grit to remove the bar. Some people recommend that. I don't do it because I spend a lot of time polishing the back of these planes and chisels and using each individual grit on the back, to me, is just going to remove that polish and make you start over. Now, bear in mind, you're probably going to come to a point where you need to flatten your back again. I don't believe in the whole theory that you do it just once and you're done with it. But I also don't think you should do it every time you sharpen. If you're like me and you woodwork, maybe if you're lucky, every weekend, maybe 2 weekends a month. If you're that type of woodworker like I am, you can easily get away with sharpening the back of your chisels and plane irons just once a year. I would think even less, but on the safe side, it's good practice to keep them honed, flat, ready to go. Even though I find this agonizingly boring, it is necessary. What's worse is I don't always listen to music when I woodwork. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But when I'm sharpening, I always listen to music. And considering I'm putting this video on YouTube, I don't want to take the chance and have it muted, because there's a song playing in the background that has some sort of copyright protection. Alright, I have a full bar across the back. It's polished. The bevel is polished. Like I said, you probably can't see it with this camera. And I have a difficult time seeing it in the garage, to be honest, too. Just because the lighting in here is poor. But it is a garage, that's all it is. It's not a workshop. It's not a real workshop. I wish it was, but it's not. So now I'll remove that bar. Hit the face of the bevel again. And this is where I use the strop. Once again, pardon me for leaving the camera. At this point, I'll remove this paper. I use this as a block of maple with some leather glued to it. There's the Wonder Dog. Kind of a no man's land here. Probably should have prepped this beforehand. Almost there. Sorry, I'm running out of battery. Sorry about that. Like I said, I was at work all day today. Long day. You know, believe I'm doing this. But I use this strop is actually charged already, but for clarity's sake, I use honing compound. This is from Veritas, but I have honing compound that's actually 15 years old from my last job. But what I do here, same thing, I did an experiment where I counted the strokes just to see how many or how few I could use. I don't follow that rule, I just did it just to see how quickly I could sharpen a chisel. But already it's very polished, and it's very sharp too, I can feel it. Some people don't use sharpening compound, I do. Some people just use leather, and I guess that works just fine, but I like how this looks. It has a nice polish to it. Now I'll pull this back. One more pass, and that should be it. This chisel should be very sharp. So we'll give it a little test. It might peel and drain, we'll see. There you go, end drain shavings. I mean, this is just pine, by the way, but no pressure at all when I get a curl. Be careful, this is chisel can mess you up as well, just as easily as a table saw. And I'm sure it will shave the hair on my arm, which it does very easily. So that's basically how I sharpen a chisel. I'm not sure how long that took, but in reality, if I weren't talking, if I weren't going on and on, I can generally have a chisel sharp in from dull to sharp in 5 minutes. And that's pretty good. Some guys can do it much quicker, but I'm an amateur and I think it works pretty well, my little method there. And this whole setup is about $200 in sharpening equipment. Some people call that fancy. I don't. I think it's about as basic as you can get, and it's well worth the money. So hopefully this helped out somebody. Thanks.